Expectations are just weird. They can build a relationship. They can destroy a relationship. They can motivate you. They can drain you. And all of this can happen without anyone saying a word. No one talks enough about the silent contracts we build in our heads, the expectations we place on people, on life, and honestly on ourselves. And most of the time, the disappointment is not coming from reality. Truthfully, it's coming from the story that we expect reality to follow. Have you ever been upset with someone and then you realize they never actually said they were going to do the thing that you expected them to do? Yeah, I do that like a lot. I think if I do this, well, then I just sort of expect that you're going to do this. If I say thank you, I just sort of expect you're going to say you're welcome. There is a moment right before disappointment hits when reality and expectation collide. And in that split second, we realize how much of our peace was tied to an outcome that we had never controlled. In actuality, expectation is just sort of a premeditated resentment, or it can become that. And a lot of times it does become that. Today, I want to talk about expectations, especially for those of us who have had a very troubled past with abandonment, neglect, really adverse childhood experiences. And you know what? Some of those are even pre-verbal. When we're babies and we cry, we don't realize it, but we expect our mothers to feed us. And a lot of us in this group, we wonder if they did, based on actions that came after our memory started really cementing in. You know, there are a lot of expectations that we have that we don't even realize we have until everything starts falling apart. And I was thinking about this because I fell apart. I didn't expect it to happen. I had no expectations. At that time, I was so over-medicated with wrong medications, I couldn't think. And they did permanent damage to my body. It's really kind of sad, you know, when, just briefly, when Obamacare went into effect, 2008, mental health care professionals were jumping ship. They were closing their private practices. And that's when my fall happened, was 2008, and it lasted for a while. I went through probably 6, 7, 8. I can't even remember the faces of the doctors I went to, except one. Well, two. One of them I went to, and very nice, beautiful office, very cozy. And this was when I was trying to get myself out of the hospital, because you guys know the story. If you don't, I'll link it in the description. Anyway, she checked boxes for about 2 hours, asked me questions, checked boxes. And I don't know what I was expecting, but I'll never forget the moment that she turned around and she said very properly, or I feel very comfortable saying, based on this questionnaire, that you have bipolar disorder 2. Okay. At that point, I was cool. I was like, okay, we have a name to what's haunting me. Let's do something and take care of it. They medicated me for that. And that's when everything started to unravel. Even worse. It was like I took a match and went all around the exterior of my body, just set it on fire. So I lived like that until December of, I think it was 2011, when I met my psychiatrist that treated me until he retired last year. And I met my therapist, who is still treating me. And I first met him in December of 2011. So we went along for a while, and my psychiatrist, after several months, possibly close to a year, he said, "You don't have bipolar disorder." I was stunned. I'm like, what the heck? Why am I taking this medication that makes me not feel, that makes me act irrationally? Why am I taking this stuff? He said, "Terry, you should never have been put on that." I'm very sure, after observing you for all of these months, close to a year, I think it was, he said, "You have complex post-traumatic stress disorder." My world changed. I don't know. Did I get off track? I think get off track. Let's go back to expectations. I guess I was expecting doctors to fix me, and they couldn't do it. They made everything worse. And when I went to my new doctors, I was expecting the same old stuff, but you know what? They surprised me, and I have grown so much since then, but I really want to talk about the things I learned when I went away for my birthday this year. Many of you know that because of my own expectations on how I want my birthday to go, I can't have it here at home. I need to be away. It's not fair of me to put my expectations on my family. And it's not fair for me to have their lack of understanding about what I expect or what I want. That's not fair of me to put that on them. So I go away every year. The first year, I decided I was going to go to Greece. I've been to Portugal. I've been to Washington, D.C. multiple times. I've been all of these places. This year, it was sort of a spur of the moment. I was thinking, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? We'd been out of work. Israel was off. I had planned to go to Israel. That was off, obviously. Bombs were everywhere. And it was sort of a spur of the moment decision for me. I had seen that someone that I wanted to see, wanted to hear speak, was speaking in Yorba Linda at an event, and I wanted to go there. I had a friend, or have a friend, that lives in Palm Springs that is a photographer slash artist, and I wanted just to get to know him and talk to him about his techniques. How does he do this amazing collage art? And generally when I leave on vacation, not vacation, for my birthday, I take my camera, I take my makeup, sometimes clothes, my backpack, and I am off. And I'm alone. When I'm alone, I don't have to live by anyone else's rules. I don't have to worry if they're going to be upset because I want to stop and take a photograph. I don't have to worry if I want to drive up to the reservoir in the middle of the night to photograph the Milky Way. I'd rather be untethered during that time because, my birthdays to me are very special. To me, they signify one more year that I have been out from under the umbrella of bipolar disorder and out and away from the medications that truthfully made me out of my mind. But expectations, my gosh, I had a lot of them when I went down there. What I expected to happen was I was going to go down, I was going to go to this event, and then I was going to meet with my friend and look at his work, and then I would just be off taking photographs. Well, it didn't really work like that because, for one, Palm Springs is not really a walkable city in which you can get photographs. It's just not. It was hot, but the hot really didn't bother me that much. It was more the glare of the sun and trying to get photographs in the day just wasn't going to work. So my expectations on that were kind of just blown. And it was a good thing because what came out of that was I spent some time with my friend, went to the studio. I saw a lot of his art, which gave me sort of an idea. It inspired me really. And one day he and I went out to this place called Salton Sea. It's this like really cool place. You need to Google it. It's Salton and then SEA, Salton Sea. It's abandoned. It's just freaking abandoned. There are a few things here and there, but it was like in the 50s or 60s, somebody just said, we're out of here. And they left. And everything is still there. So that was really cool. But again, the photographs really were difficult to get because the sun was so bright. Maybe it's because I live in Oregon and we don't really see sun very much. It was so bright. And one night, Marco said, hey, I'm going to go to a poetry reading tonight. Do you want to go? I stopped and I thought, in my mind, I'm seeing hippies and flowers and incense and all of this stuff because that was my expectation of a poetry reading, right? I didn't know enough about it to know exactly what it was. And he looked at me and I looked at him and it's like, well, we're going to go. I was really uncomfortable at first because these people, to me, they were very intimidating in a way, and they really shouldn't have been because, they're just people. We got in there, sat down, we got in seats pretty early, and I was surprised it was packed. It was freaking packed. First couple of women got up, and I'm thinking, they were good. Don't get me wrong, they were good. But I'm thinking, if I have to spend 3 hours listening to this, I'm not going to make it. That was my expectation. I formed this expectation out of what? Nothing. Those women were excellent. The way they presented was excellent. And then there came a man that told the story I'm not sure it really qualifies as poetry, maybe more of a short story. He was talking about his grandmother and what she loved and what she hated. She hated the Yankees, anyone affiliated with New York, anyone that had a relative that was from New York. She loved Jesus and she hated just about everything else. She loved gardening. He's telling this in a way that really pulled us in, and we were expecting something totally different than we got. Then towards the end, he said he heard a sound kind of from the throat, a gurgle, and her head went back and her eyes went back. And he said, I'd never been with anyone that died before. So I went over, and he talks about holding her head and how beautiful she was, kissing her, the smell of her perfume. And he realized the TV was on. He didn't really think that was quite right. Wasn't really respectful. So he went to turn the TV off. And his grandmother sat right up and said, leave that TV on. I mean, I need to make sure the Yankees lose. Expectations. This guy had a way of pulling you in and turning you around and coming out with something totally unexpected. And I think he was really, in my opinion, the star of the night of that entire night. Marco and I talked about it a lot afterwards. Everyone was good. Everyone was good. But here's where I really want to get with expectations. This is what made me think of the expectations I put on myself. I realized after that, I went back to the hotel and I'm thinking about everyone and their different styles, the different way in which they presented themselves, the difference in melody, the difference in presentation, the difference in attitude. No one was like anyone else. So after that reading, Marco and I went out and we really had the same experience. Everyone was amazing. It was something that we had not expected to really be drawn into. And that the gentleman that spoke of his grandmother, that was a complete out of left field hook. I mean, that was good. And it was so unexpected. And I just really got to thinking about that and how I limit myself because of expectations. I look at Marco's work and I compare my work to his work. Or I compare my work to another photographer's work. I have several photographer friends here in the area. One of them is an attorney. His name is Wayne, and I compare my work to his work a lot of times. As a matter of fact, we're walking down the street in Palm Springs, and I see these like palm trees. I just had my iPhone with me. I'm walking with Marco, and I said, stop. I looked up, took 2 shots of palm trees in the sky because of Wayne. When Wayne is lying in some tropical paradise, he inevitably will post black and white images of palm trees. And it made me think of that at that moment. And I think Wayne's photography is art. 100% is art. Marco's is art. A lot of photographers that I compare myself to, in doing so, I'm limiting myself. And I think a lot of us, with the background that I've had, the background that a lot of you have had, where we've had parents that have said, you can't do that. You're not good enough to reach for that goal. You're never going to amount to anything. I don't know how you came out from us being so dumb. Not the exact words, but that was kind of the feeling we got. You know, my dad was away a lot of the time. And when he got home, he was tired. He was gone like 27, 28 days a month. He'd get home. He was tired. He was also an alcoholic. And I remember one morning him pouring a great big old glass of straight vodka. My expectation was that I would have a father that wasn't an alcoholic, that would raise me. As a matter of fact, when I was thinking about this a few months ago, when I must have been, at that time, I have to sort of put things by the houses that I lived in because track of time, some things I remember, a lot of things I don't remember. I had to have been 10 or 11 years old because we had just moved into a new house. And I had an imaginary family, one that loved me, whose dad was home all the time, whose mom didn't lock me out of the house. That family was nurturing. They were caring. They were a lot like my aunt's families from what I can see on the outside. And that's kind of weird. I don't know if that fits with expectations or not, but, I kind of shifted the reality of my family onto this new family. So my expectations and my desperate wishing for a different family, I think it really made me possibly see my family in a different light, maybe a darker light than what was reality. But then again, after years of therapy, I pretty much know what reality was. And it's the same as many of you. You were abandoned. You were neglected. There was childhood abuse. There was sexual abuse. There was everything happened to us that really put us in a box. Someone else put us in a box. But you know what? We didn't climb out of that box. We lived within the confines of that square they put us in. That colored my entire life, as I'm sure it did yours. I never expected to have full sleeve tattoos. I never expected to have a full leg sleeve tattoo. I never expected this, but it was therapy for me, and I'm glad that I have it. So many times when we expect something, we're limiting ourselves or we're limiting someone else. I have several family members that I will text on their birthday or call on their birthday or send flowers on their birthday. But you know what I realized? Even though I really wasn't, maybe I was expecting them to at least text me on my birthday or remember me on my birthday. After all, I was the first child, first daughter, first granddaughter, first niece. And as my other aunt said, first child, first daughter of the first son, first child of the first daughter. If you understand that, great. If you don't, just rewind it a bit. And maybe it'll make sense. So in a way, I kind of expected, especially since I had been reaching out to them since I got everything pulled back and together, that they might remember me, but they don't. And I need to take that out of my expectations. I really messed up this year and I forgot the date of my uncle's birthday. I knew it, but in my phone, it had it for 18 days later than it really was. So I was waiting, and his wife got in touch with me and said, do you know when your uncle's birthday is? I'm like, yeah, my phone says it's the 28th. And she said, no, it's not. It's the 10th. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I felt horrible. And then she said, well, when is yours? So we can put it down and remember your birthday. So see, this was in April. This was probably April 26th that this happened. My birthday was May 7th. Not a word from her. Okay. My uncle, I understand. He's dealing with some pretty severe health issues right now. But my gosh, I love him to death. I love him to death. I put myself in a box because expectations, all they brought, my expectations were just bringing resentment. And it was continuing the pattern of neglect and hurt and abuse that had happened in my life. I have thousands of photographs, and I've been going through them lately because I really want to make a bit of a career change. Being inspired by Marco's work, being inspired by Wayne's work, being inspired by people that I don't even know, but I follow them on Instagram. I started going through my pictures, my photographs. I didn't before because I really didn't think they were going to be any good. I've got some pretty good shots. And so I've started posting them a lot on my Instagram account. And you know what? People like them. Am I the same style as everyone else? No. Are they the same style as me? No. I guess what I'm really trying to convey is don't put yourself in that box with expecting something or comparing yourself to other people, because you're no one else. You're unique. You're beautiful. You're wonderful. You have your own qualities and quirks that make you uniquely you. Don't try to be someone else. And don't shrink back because your expectation to mimic these people, you can't do it. They're them. And you don't want to do it. You want to be yourself. So I want to tell you about a couple of other expectations I had on this trip that changed the way I thought, the way I think. I rented a car from Turo instead of going through one of the rent-a-car services because they had a car that was my car. Same make, same model, same color, everything. I picked up the car, or they dropped the car off at the hotel. And I started off to Yorba Linda, and the roads are kind of like grooved there. So I was feeling this like shimmy, the shake, and I thought it was just the roads because I really like Multnomah County roads. And the closer I got, the more the car started shaking. And then I took the exit. I had to slow down. The brakes were a little wonky. Something was scaring me a little bit with that. I went to accelerate, and it wouldn't accelerate. And then suddenly it jumped. So I got into the parking lot where I was supposed to be, and I texted the host, and I said, hey, this car is not fine. This car is unsafe, and you're putting yourself in danger by renting this. You're endangering the lives of other people, and you're looking at a huge-ass lawsuit. I was really polite. I know what it's like to be self-employed, and unless he gave me a reason to go cutthroat, I wasn't going to do it, but he was very polite. He was very apologetic, and he had a car out there when the event ended. It was a newer car, had less miles, but I had a hard time. I had just expected it to hook up to my iPhone to tell me how to get back. I had a 2-hour drive ahead of me in the dark, which I have a hard time seeing in the dark anyway, and on roads I'd never been on before. I had no idea, and I was freaking out. And I texted him back, and I'm like, hey, host, my phone will not connect to this Wi-Fi. I cannot get it. I cannot pull up my GPS. He could not have been more friendly. He sent me directions, which really didn't help me a lot because it's hard to read directions when you're driving in the dark on roads that you've never been on. And then he said that he would stay on the phone with me if I couldn't get it to work. He would stay on the phone with me and he would guide me to my hotel. How unexpected is that? That's crazy. But I'm like, no. By that time, I had figured out how to get the Bluetooth to connect to my phone. And so I had that. And he said, okay, well, I want you to text me. I'm going to stay up. I want you to text me because this was like 9:00 at night. Text me when you get to your hotel. I'm not going to sleep until I know that you're safe. That was really unexpected. I don't really see people act that way, especially business people a lot of times. That was unexpected. That was a great thing that I did not expect. And so the car that they brought me was a new Buick Invista, I think. It's like the SUV. It was a very nice car. I expected it to have power, right? Power seats, power windows, all of this stuff like I've had for the last 20 years in my cars. So this is really kind of funny. I get there to the car and I try to get into the car. I try to get in the car. Most of you know I'm 6 feet tall, okay? And I generally wear 3 to 4 inch heels. I had 4 inch heels on that night. I couldn't get my legs in the car. I could not get my freaking leg in the car to start the car because, you have to put your foot on the brake and push the button. Couldn't do it. And I couldn't figure out how to here are my expectations of having every convenience that I have in my car were just blown out of the water because this car didn't have it. So I had to think back like however many years since I had a car that didn't have all these gadgets on it, how to work it. And then I remembered, okay, there are some cars that you reach under this seat, you can pull up this bar and the seat will go back. It worked. I got in the car. I was comfortable. It was really a pretty nice car. And I got back. So I really wish this would have been so great if I could pull the CCTV from the cameras that were all around this place that I went. That would have been like really epic, funny because I was so hot. I was so pissed. I was so frustrated. But I wasn't going to take that out on the host. From when I looked at his churro thing, he had like 33, 34 cars that he was managing. I knew he was pretty busy. I could hear a baby crying in the background. I don't know how long he had been doing this, but I was polite and bringing across everything. And he went out of his way to make sure I was safe. And then came the time, the last day of my stay, he was to pick the car up from the hotel at 3 p.m. He called me or texted me at 2 minutes after 3 or before 3, 2 minutes before 3, he texted me. And he wanted to know where I was going to leave the car, where to leave the keys. And he said, I cannot believe how nice you've been through this entire process. And that made me think of something else. Well, I don't know if this fits in this or not, but if you grew up in a house like mine where everything you did was wrong, you learn to apologize for things that had nothing to do with you. This was the first time in my life that I caught myself doing that. Here's a stranger. I apologized time after time after time after time after time for being a pain when that's his job, is to make sure his customers or his clientele are safe and that they have cars and vehicles that are going to run properly. But I'm apologizing. And I know that has nothing to do with expectations, but it has to do with how our brains form when we're kids and we're told that we are just never going to amount to anything. That was like a real time, oh my gosh, moment. I really have been affected by the conditioning of my parents, the conditioning of every relationship I had ever had, to be put in a place to having to apologize for things that I had nothing to do with. That was kind of eye-opening for me. Certainly nothing I expected because, I'm doing really well in navigating the situation that I'm in right now. A lot of it is I've just learned a lot of techniques in how not to be reactive, in how to pause before I respond, how to respond, and when not to respond. My life is so messed up, or it was so messed up. And when I got to thinking about this with expectations and how we limit ourselves because of those expectations, it was one of those light bulb moments. And I want you guys to sort of examine the way you live. What are your expectations? Drop them in the comments if you want to. What are your expectations? Do you even have any expectations? Because I know a lot of us just threw our expectations in the garbage because we were told we were basically trash. And in my instance, I think if you have been with me for a while, you'll remember the story of I was like 3 years old living in West Texas, and I wanted to go into the house. I was in the backyard. My mom always locked us out of the house, or locked me out of the house. Can't speak for my brothers. And I was in the backyard by myself. I had no idea where my brothers were. And the slider was locked. And this was like summertime in Texas, and it was hot. I wanted to go in. I wanted water. My mother opened the door a crack, and she said, "Stop it, or I'm going to put you in the trash." Okay, so where I lived, the trash cans were in the alleys, and I could hear the trash cans coming up. And I told my mom, "I'll just tell them to bring me back home." And she said, "They don't speak English." Whoa. So if you can't expect your mother to nourish you and protect you and take care of you, if you're not worthy enough for your mom to do more than just feed you canned food, I mean, she kept us alive, but if you're not worthy enough in their eyes, you're not worthy in your eyes. And so we build all of these expectations and shields and armor because we don't want to go through that again. And I think a lot of times, in examining my past relationships, current relationships, everything, I've come to realize, I realized this a while back. I was pretty much in the same situation in dealing with my mom, who didn't care. She didn't care. She just flat out didn't care. Unless we were going to be in public, she didn't care what we wore. She didn't care what we ate or if we ate. But in public, we were always dressed really cute. Everything was like on the outside looked perfect. I think in a lot of my relationships, I had tried to recreate that to fix it, to see if I was worthy. And in a lot of the relationships, I knew I wasn't worthy. And so I made very poor choices. But you know what? I look back at all of that, and it was such a gift. I know I'm kind of off topic, but just float with me here, okay? It was such a gift because there was one relationship, a friendship, that healed a lot of the mother wounds within me and allowed me to see my mom for who and what she was. I love her dearly, but she was not a good mother. She was a great grandmother, but she was not a good mom. So this relationship that healed me was a friendship with I think a lot of you know that I shoot gigs here. I do a lot of blues photography and headshot photography for artists, musical artists here in Portland. I met this woman. She was somebody that was self-proclaimed. Well, no, really, she had uh, people called her the I don't even know what to even say, but they credited her with being like blues royalty and bringing San Francisco blues into the Portland area back in the 80s. And yes, she did do that. Yes, she was very good in the beginning. And I had known her for years. And then we had this relationship. She almost died. And that's kind of what set everything off. She almost died. I had to call in a welfare check. And then I had to start giving her infusions at home after we got out of the hospital. And that led me down a path that I'm glad I went down because, like I said, she healed a lot of the wounds from my mother, but it wasn't for good reasons. These were for very selfish, very nefarious reasons. And one day I was coming home from my massage therapist who knew her and did not like her at all. She knew the real person behind the persona. And this song came on. She was still in my playlist at that time. And Tell Mama came on by Etta James. You should read that because when I really listened to the words, that's what she did to me. Tell Mama. You pick someone that was no good for you. Tell Mama I'll do everything. I don't know. Read the words. It was that was her script. And even though it was for nefarious purposes, and I expected her not to turn out to be a total monster, I'm grateful because there were a lot of wounds that were healed. And that relationship really made me stop and open my eyes. And I think that was at the point in my life where I decided I will not have any more relationships with anyone, friendship that close. We were very, very close. I won't have any of those real close relationships anymore. I will not have any romantic relationships anymore. I mean, I'll have friends. That's probably about it. Because for me, I don't trust myself. It's not that I don't trust the people. I'm not good at choosing people. And I need to stop expecting that I am. I think with every time I make a friend or get into a relationship, a friendship, I always wonder now, am I making the right choice? I'm putting the expectation on myself of making the wrong choice. And in this instance, it's something I need to stick with until I'm healed enough to be able to make appropriate choices. But at this point, Terry's not going to be having any relationships that go further than her friendship at arm's length. I do have a friend here. I've shot a lot of photos for her for her website and to promote. She's in Spain. She and I went to the movies the other day. It was great. She's wonderful. She's in the same position I am. She has my background. We relate in that aspect. She's very honest about it. I'm very honest about it. But she's someone I can talk to, which is good. Find someone you can talk to, but vet them first, because you can say one thing and that person's going to say something to someone else, but it's not going to be what you said. It's going to be like a grain of what you said and then completely twist it around. And then all hell is going to break loose. And back to expectations. I never expected to get a text that I got the other day. I had to stop. It was on Instagram. I had to stop and think, who is this? Let me see if I can pull up Instagram and read you the part of this message, and you can see why at first I was kind of creeped out and a little bit unsure of what was going on. Okay, I did not. This picture is very difficult to recognize who's in the photo. I couldn't tell who this person was. If my eyes were better, if my contacts worked better, I probably could. But there's a red, like a filter on it. This was April 6th, and it creeped me out because it was something I didn't expect. And I had no idea who this person was. Good morning. I hope you're all doing well. I've been wanting to reach out to you for a while now, but I just wanted to let you know I do respect you and everything you did. I know it wasn't easy. And then it goes on to some personal stuff. And I'm thinking, who in the hell is this? So I read this over several times. And then it got to, I know it wasn't easy to raise that many kids while balancing everything else. But as a kid, you're not ever thinking about that kind of stuff. And I'm like scanning this, not knowing who this person is. And then it said, you have two beautiful granddaughters who are amazing. And I want to let you know they are beautiful, intelligent. And I've taken things from you that you taught me and I've applied it for them. It's my youngest son. He's 28. You know how long it took me to do the math to figure out how old he was, because I as a portion of my life that I've just sort of written off are those relationships, because my expectations, they're going to be completely different. All I have to go on is the past and what happened in the past, and I don't want that drama in my life anymore. And since April the 6th, he's messaged me 99% of the time that's gone by. Every day he's texted me. He sent me pictures last night of the girls. He told me some things that he had problems with when he was a kid, and I never expected that. He said, one of the things, Mom, I really felt like you put me on the back burner. I said, I did. I think that caught him off guard. I said, do you have any idea why you were on the back burner? He said, no. I said, because you and these other two siblings were so easy. And with the rest of the kids in the house, it was a constant battle. There were hospitals, there were fights, there were doctors, there were thefts, there were people stealing from my bank account. People were stealing my car and slashing tires. Lies, lies, lies. And I was having to take care of Joshua. A lot of you know about Joshua and his mental illnesses and how sick he was. And my son said something about that. He said, I kind of feared that you had like too much to manage. I said, I have known that for so long. It was not intentional, but I had so many fires to put out. He said, I saw that, Mom. That's what happened. He said, I can see it now that I have my own kids. Never would have expected that. Never would have expected that. If there was any child that would have come from, it would have been from him. And I'm excited, but I'm having to be really careful because I don't want to put too much of an expectation out there. And then I'm going to be like crushed again. I think I'd love to take a trip with his wife and him and the girls. This episode's making me really nervous because I've noticed I'm using a lot of filler words, which I'm going to cut out hopefully in editing. But expectations, my gosh, it's such a big weight. And we don't even know what we're doing to ourselves. We have no idea. Nobody can read our minds. And a lot of the times with us, and when I say us, I mean all of you that have gone through similar things that I have, we know when we say something, it's not going to be taken. We know when we ask for something to change, it's not going to change. Letting go of those expectations and just realizing, hey, this is what it is, make the best of it and try to live our life around it. I had someone recently say, and I can't remember who it was, which is probably good. And they said, how do you manage your life now in the situation that you're in? How do you live in that while at the same time keeping peace and being as friendly and open as you are? How do you do that? I said, well, it's pretty easy. I don't let anyone control my life anymore. I'm in control of my life. The kids aren't in control of my life. Business is not in control of my life. Other people are not in control of my life. I am. It's my own expectations that have hurt me from people that are incapable of, I have to be really careful here because there was a lot of poison in the well, and that's all been pretty much confirmed from other people that it was my family was poisoned against me by lies. And I can't even tell you that the number of people that have told me that. And so I understand that part. And in the beginning, when I started to reach out, they didn't know what to expect because they had been told one thing. They had seen me crash and burn and take my entire family with me. But what they didn't do is see me put myself back together. And I just expected, hey, this is Terry. Everything's cool. But see, that wasn't going to work because they had been poisoned and they didn't know what to expect. So they're like confined by these expectations that someone else put on them. And my expectation box has kind of been opened up, and I don't, I just kind of figured things would resume, and they didn't, and that's okay. It's a learning curve. And do I really want that in my life? Do I really want in my life to continually wonder what I mean to other people? No, I don't. I'm so glad my son reached out. That is like so very healing. And for him to say the things that he said, for him to tell me the things that he told me, none of that was expected, but I can say that I can believe that it happened knowing these individuals. I'm so far off track. I'm always off track. I just wanted to encourage you guys about expectations and kind of let you know how they've ruined my life, how they've controlled my life. And the only expectations I can really make are ones for myself. I expect to go out and take my dogs out for a walk. I expect to take them, things that I expect to do. And even sometimes I let myself down. But expecting things from other people, it's not healthy. It's just not healthy, especially with the people that we have chosen to be in our lives or whose lives we were just put in because of our parents. We couldn't control any of that. We can't control the poison. If we're healed and we're doing well, we can't expect people to realize that they're being outright lied to. We can't expect that. We just have to kind of let go, sit back, let the ship sail. And if it comes about, it comes about. And if it doesn't, you know what? I am totally fine with that. I am 100% fine. I just sit here thinking about all the expectations I had 10 years ago. And my daughter that rents the top part of the house told me at one point, you need to stop thinking about that, Mom. They're not the same people you think they are. They are not who you think they are. That made a big impact on me. That made a huge impact on me because I had to sit back. And that's when I was able to say, you know what? I'm fine. If I see my grandkids again, that would be great. If I don't, you know what? Those are choices that were made by their parents, and they're going to have to reap the repercussions of that. It was hard in the beginning, but now I'm fine. I don't expect it, and so I'm fine. If it happens like it did with my youngest son, it'll be a surprise. Am I going to be guarded? Oh, heck yeah, I was really guarded with him because I had no idea if there are a couple of the kids that I know that would put him up to, or would put someone up to this to gather whatever information they could. And after speaking with him for so long, I realized, he said, I'm not influenced by them. And I called every one of them and told them I would be in touch with you, that I'm my own person. I'm my own man. And I want to talk to my mom. What a blessing it is to have something unexpected that's that wonderful drop in your lap. I want you guys to think about that in your life. What expectations do you have? And if you want to drop them in the comments, please do. I try to reach out to everyone that leaves comments because I'm very appreciative. And people that email me or message me via one of my platforms, I try to be the person that takes the time to tell them they're valuable. Let them know that what they did matters. If you would like to do that, please do, because you're not only encouraging me, you're not only freeing yourself, but you're giving hope to other people, which is really the sole purpose of this podcast, is to give other people hope. I had a girl comment the other day that it really made my week. She said, so if I had my freaking phone up here, I'd be able to tell you what she said, but she said something to the effect of, thank you for being so open in speaking about the things I do, that she for so long felt she was the only one that was going through this, and that I have inspired her. She's 26 and she's seeing me at 64. So if she can take any of these things and apply to her life, she said that I have inspired her that she will have a bright future. And that was a very nice compliment. That was a very nice comment for her to make. And it made me realize, yeah, I'm doing good with this. I'm exposing everything I've got. But you know what? It's fine. If someone else, believe me, the things that have been said about me, my life is nowhere near that level. So if I can just tell what I've gone through to help other people, that'd be very selfish of me to keep it to myself. So I want to thank you guys for hanging in there with me. And I also wanted to ask you, if you have a topic that you're curious about or that you want me to explore with you, or if you want to be a guest, anything like that, drop it in the comments, because I'm here for you guys. If you want to hear something about how I managed growing up with a father that wasn't there, that was an alcoholic, I can do that. If you want to know what it's like with anything, I can tell you the best I can, and I will be 100% transparent, because I want better for you than I had for me. I hope that makes sense. So thank you guys. Any topics that you want to hear, please drop it in the comments, either on the podcast or on the YouTube channel. And I will see you guys pretty soon. I'm hoping to have this a little bit more regular than it has been, because in reality, I was afraid of this podcast. It was hard for me in the first few years. And then I got a little afraid because I was feeling ashamed, maybe that shame came back for me from my parents and from my family. Maybe, I don't know what it was, but that girl's comment the other day really lit a match. And that's what I want to do. I want to make sure that you guys have someone there. I didn't have anyone with me. I had to break alone. I had to rebuild alone. I had my therapist, but they're not like your friends or your family. I was alone. And for me, that worked. But I know it would have been a lot better for me to know that there were other people that were in the same situation that I was in. So don't hesitate to reach out. Don't hesitate to let me know if you have another topic that you want me to talk about, and we will do it. We will make sure it gets done because I'm here for you. Thank you guys, and I'll talk to you soon.